Greetings and welcome to the Dream Syndicate. In today's video, we're making a fantasy art doll as we make a fey creature, a brambling. I've created the basic shape for the brambling's head, and now I'll put the landmarks where the eyes go. I refined the sculpting and put a bark-like texture all over the creature's head. Once I've refined the shape of the art doll's head, then I can finally put in the eyes. With the eyes placed, I can then work on fine details such as eyelids, brow ridges, and then go back and work on more of that texturing like I am here with this brow ridge. Check out this video if you want to see the head sculpted in depth. Next, I use fine gauge aluminum wire and aluminum tubing to sculpt a pair of hands for the character. I began by putting in rough forms and then gradually refining them to look more and more like a set of hands. If you want to get a good feel for how hands should look, just look down at your own. They're right there and always with you. Next, we'll use an umber tone as a base tone for our painting. Now we'll start layering up different tones and shades to start to bring this fey art doll to life. Next, I'm going to apply an ink wash all over the brambling's head. This will give him a darker tone and also bring up some of those branch details that I sculpted into him. When applying an ink wash, you let it sit for 3 to 5 minutes, and then you gently wipe it away with either a paper towel or a Q-tip and go across the grain of the surface you're taking it away from. Now I'm repainting some of the lighter tones around the eyes and the eyelids that were lost and covered over by that ink wash. If you want a more in-depth look at the painting process, you can click this video here and see more. The flowers for the art doll are from an arts and crafts store, and they were just attached with Fabri-Tac. I used 2-part resin epoxy to give this fey creature's teeth a nice healthy shine. The art doll's clothes were made without any sort of pattern. I just took rough measurements and transferred that onto the fabric. I want my art doll's clothes to look lived in, so I intentionally wrinkle and distress the fabric. To further the idea that these clothes are well worn and traveled in, I apply a dry brush of raw umber across the fabric surface. Sandpaper can also be used to give the clothes a bit of weathering. As you work, it's helpful to crease the fabric to help train it to go into shape that you're going to want it as you sew. Here I'm pinning the artdoll shirt fabric. The upholstery foam that's attached to the armature is pretty handy for being able to push these pins into. We'll just quickly take our measurements for the character's sleeves here. Again, we'll use that technique of dirtying the fabric up with our raw umber dry brush. I wanted to soften the effect of these brown spots on the shirt a little bit, so I'm going over it with sandpaper, and it'll also distress it a little more. The last fabric detail I want to give the brambling is this earthy, sort of dingy cloak. Here I'm bending down part of the cloak fabric to create sort of a cowl that's going to go around the character's head. I like art doll costuming that feels just sort of otherworldly and fantastical, so that's usually the kind of thing that I'm going for. I cut irregular pieces of the cloak to give it a nice asymmetrical look. As I'm using my sandpaper here, I'm being careful to not sort of abrade and tear away the thread that I already sewed in. I want to give this character a belt, but I also want all of his clothing to have sort of an earthy quality to it, so I'm going to wind this bit of twine around and that should do the trick. Once the art doll was completed, I was ready to set him up for photography. The brambling was staged in a set, I set up lighting, and took photographs, and then after that I did some post-production in the digital image, and this is the final result. If you'd like a print, you can order one from the link in the description or pinned comment. Thanks so much for watching. If you want to join me in making the imaginary reality, don't forget to subscribe and hit the bell icon. Until next time, make believe!